Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for a discussion on the Trump-Pence's administration's failed coronavirus response and their efforts to take away healthcare from nearly 100,000 Mainers while we're in the middle of a pandemic. My name is Kathleen Mara, and I'm chair of the Maine Democratic Party. Joining me today are three very special guests: Congresswoman Chellie Pingree, Maine Attorney General Aaron Frey, and Maine State Senate President Troy Jackson. In just a moment, I'm going to turn it over to each of them to talk about why we can't afford another 4 years of Donald Trump and Mike Pence's failed leadership, and why we need Joe Biden and Kamala Harris in the White House. Vice President Pence may be in Maine today, but every single day, Mainers are grappling with the consequences of Trump and Pence's chaotic and failed leadership. We're worried about our health care. We're worried about a resurgence of the virus just as winter is about to hit. And we're worried about what 4 more years of Trump and Pence will do to this nation. We truly are in a battle for the soul of the nation, and we have to do everything we can to make sure we elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Democrats up and down the ticket. I'd like to turn it over first to Congresswoman Chellie Pingree. Whether it's fighting for access to health care, mitigating the effects of climate change that have already taken a toll on our environment and economy, or fighting for frontline workers, first responders, small businesses, and everyday Mainers who have been impacted by Trump's failed pandemic response, Chellie Pingree is a tireless champion for the people of Maine, and we couldn't be more thrilled that she's joining us today. Congresswoman Pingree, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you so much, Kathleen. Sorry for the delay of all the buttons that have to be pushed before you can start. I'm so pleased to be on this call with our Democratic chairwoman and also Senate President Jackson and Attorney General Frey. It's good to be with you, and it's good to have a little bit of a chance to talk about this failed administration. Vice President Pence is visiting the state of Maine today to make the case for why they should have another 4 years. And Mainers are going to soundly disagree with him on that, as is everyone across the country. And certainly I do too. They have failed on so many fronts, but let me just mention a couple. Certainly as a member of Congress, I've had a chance to watch firsthand how this administration has destroyed our country over their response to the COVID-19. Particularly Vice President Pence, who has been the leader of the task force appointed by this president in this failed leadership. The most damning information came when we found out that the president knew back in February the magnitude of this disease. He knew it was spread in an airborne way. He knew it affected all people, including children, and he knew it was worse than the flu. Yet we've seen months of failed leadership on this. And as I said, as a member of Congress, I've seen it firsthand. Their unwillingness to fund the important measures that we've needed, whether it's to take care of people's health, to reopen our schools, to keep our economy going, or to make sure that we had adequate testing and tracing. They fought us every step of the way. They haven't told the American people the truth. They've completely mishandled this. And as a result, we still have a country with numbers going in the wrong direction, with an economy that is continuing to be challenged. And to this day, they're unwilling to help us move forward to support on all the things that we need to do. One other thing about Vice President Pence. I had the privilege, or questionable privilege, to serve for a few years in Congress with him, and he was proudly the leader of many of the measures that were anti-women's right to choose, anti-LGBT rights, whether it was defunding Planned Parenthood or his continuing support of anti-LGBT measures, including supporting the bigoted conversion therapy, which is banned here in the state of Maine. One thing after another. They have been impossible to work with. They do not deserve another term. And I, like so many voters in Maine, will be saying no when it comes to Pence and Trump on my ballot. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Thank you so much for joining us, Congresswoman Pingree. Now, I'd like to turn it over to our next speaker, Attorney General Aaron Frey. Attorney General Frey served in the Maine House of Representatives from 2012, representing parts of Bangor and part of Orono before being elected Maine's 58th Attorney General in 2019. Earlier this year, Attorney General Frey vowed to join with like-minded attorneys general around the country to oppose the Trump administration's lawsuit to strike down the Affordable Care Act. We're so glad you've joined us today, Attorney General Frey. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Kathleen. And I also want to thank all those who gave me this opportunity to join with Congresswoman Pingree and with President Jackson to talk not just about the concerns I have about the failure of leadership and broken promises that the Trump campaign and Vice President Pence as his enabler have given to Maine, but I also want to make sure to put in that I see a positive future in electing Vice President Biden and Senator Harris to be our next president and vice president to get us out of the mess that this self-serving administration has left us with. You know, as Congresswoman Pingree pointed out, COVID-19 had presented an opportunity for true leadership to be shown by President Trump and Vice President Pence. Indeed, Vice President Pence was in the driver's seat in terms of how it is that our country could respond. Instead, what they did is left it to the states, left it to governors like our Governor Mills, and to state legislatures like the legislature that President Jackson and Speaker Gideon lead, left it to these entities to decide how to protect its citizens, how to make sure that they were protected. And all along that way, as governors did what they had to do to protect our citizens, the Trump administration, both President Trump and Vice President Pence, were there snipping at the heels of governors who were doing the hard work of making sure that people were able to survive this COVID-19 crisis. Indeed, here in Maine, when Governor Mills took strong leadership action to make sure that citizens were protected, the response of the Trump administration was to file in federal court to say that we weren't getting it right. They didn't provide any information on what could be done to protect citizens. They just said that we were getting it wrong. That's not leadership. In fact, that's the opposite. That's the absence of leadership. As it was also pointed out by Congresswoman Pingree, we were promised testing. We were promised that we were going to be able to make sure that us, our families, were safe in COVID-19 negative. Still waiting for that broad access that was promised very early on in the crisis. Of course, if the Trump administration, both Trump and Vice President Pence, had trusted the American people, had trusted them with the information that this was indeed a very contagious, very deadly disease that not only spread by water droplets, but also may spread by airborne, if they trusted the American people with that information, showed leadership in trusting the American people, we might have a completely different situation today. Needlessly, people have died when that information could have saved their lives. But there is one action that the Trump administration has taken in this COVID-19 crisis. That's to try to strike down the only access to healthcare that tens of thousands of Mainers, millions of people across the United States have. And what I mean by that is that the Trump administration is in court right now trying to repeal the Affordable Care Act. Again, no plan whatsoever on how to deal with the COVID-19 crisis. Their only response is to say, you know what, let's get rid of the Affordable Care Act. And by the way, there's no replacement plan. The only thing that we've heard from President Trump and from Vice President Pence, in fact, Vice President Pence should answer that question when he's in Maine today. What is their plan? It's not enough to just say, well, we're going to make sure that pre-existing conditions are still covered. You've got to have some details. I don't trust that this administration has any plan that's going to do anything for the people of Maine or for the people across the United States who depend upon the health care access that the Affordable Care Act provides, which is why folks like me, attorney generals like me, are going to be fighting for that access across the country. And you know, the rule of law is really important. It's not just about the words on paper that say what it is that the law is. It's about active enforcement of those ideals and principles that are put forward by the legislature, put forward by the governor, put forward through that process. It means having to be committed to make sure that the rule of law applies to everybody. That is a broken promise. The ability to enforce the law and treat people equally under the law is a broken promise that the Trump administration and his enabler, Vice President Pence, have provided. Instead, they foment discord. They foment disruption because with the president's divisive language, his support for the disruptive elements within our homeland, which includes QAnon, which he says he knows nothing about, but he is the president of the United States. He has access to information. He needs to start paying attention to his job. When you have concerning elements like those that we see in Michigan, those concerning elements that we saw in Charlottesville, Virginia, the President and Vice President Pence inability to call out bad actors when bad actors are doing bad things that disrupt the harmony and peace within our homeland, that's a problem, and he needs to go. True leadership requires some level of sacrifice, some level of subordination to the ideals that are put forward in our Constitution, that we need to work together to make sure that everybody is served underneath this important document, the Constitution, and the rule of law that we all have to abide by. The self-serving administration that we have seen with Trump and Pence, and they're helping their friends, claiming that they're going to jail their political opponents, unheard of in this country, and we can do better. And we have that opportunity. People are voting right now, and I encourage folks to go out and vote for a future that believes that the rule of law is important, that supporting law enforcement isn't just in words, but making sure that they have the resources to do what it is that we're asking them to do, to make sure that people have access to health care through the Affordable Care Act and its improvement. Those are the things that Vice President Biden and Senator Harris promise in their campaign. That's the future that I support. That's the future that I see for this country. That is the kind of self-sacrifice that I know that they're going to give to make sure that we're taken care of here in Maine and across the country. And I don't believe that Vice President Pence is going to be able to answer why it is that their administration can do anything for Mainers or for the country. So please support President Trent, Vice President Biden, and Senator Harris. And Kathleen, thank you for this opportunity to address folks today.
Thank you so much for joining us, Attorney General Frey. You know, nothing's clearer. Maine Democrats will always fight for Mainers' health care, and nothing could be more important in the middle of a pandemic. So now I'd like to turn it over to our final speaker, Senate President Troy Jackson. Senator Jackson is a fifth-generation logger from Allagash who got into politics because he was tired of politicians making decisions without regard for working families in his community and all across the state. Now, as president of the Maine Senate, Troy is making sure all Mainers have a seat at the table. It's a pleasure to have you join us today, Senator Jackson. The floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Kathleen. And thanks everyone for putting this together. And I certainly appreciate the words of Congresswoman Pingree and Attorney General Frey. You know, I think back 2016, and you know, people all across the state, you know, were told that you know, we're going to make America great again. Not that America wasn't already great, but obviously playing on a lot of everyday people's fears of things like healthcare, student debt, prescription drugs, and having a job that you know is going to be secure, and you know, you're going to have it for a long term. And to be honest, you know, those claims ring very hollow today, almost 4 years later. You know, and in my industry, you know, with the COVID-19, the use of paper is way down. There's logging contractors, logging employees across the state that, you know, find themselves under capacity, out of work, not getting fair rates, and, you know, really having a struggle with, you know, what's going on in DC. Nothing, no help for them. In addition to that, what jobs there are left, we find ourselves being, you know, pushed out by foreign workers coming in out of Canada. And, you know, we've filed complaints with the administration, asked the administration for help. And you know, what's worse than not getting any help at all is it all falling on deaf ears, having no response at all. Which is a consistent frame from this administration. The lobster industry, having people that with the tariffs, having, you know, dollars per pound lost in their catch, and getting very minimal relief back from the industry. I mean, they've actually lost more than they've gained, but you can see 4 years later what the idea is coming up the election is to give people money to try and buy their vote back for failed policies that have not helped. And we see this, continuing on and on and on. And now with COVID-19, America has been knocked down. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's, millions of people that have lost their jobs. There's people that have lost their health care, small businesses that have lost, and there's no, plan on how to help these people. I mean, it's just a complete failure of leadership to do anything. And let's be very, very clear. All of these people getting tax cuts for the wealthiest people in the United States is not going to help any of these people that have lost their jobs, lost their businesses. This is just a continued effort to make sure that the wealthiest in this country get the breaks while the everyday working class people get the shaft. And that's what we're seeing up and down, state by state, and certainly in this state. And I think it's very clear that what we have to do is we have to have a legitimate plan on how to get this COVID-19 crisis under wraps and take care of it and get by it, get past it. And this is not something that we're seeing with this administration at all. It is so disjointed that it doesn't make any sense at all. No one can tell. I mean, we're actually being banned from going to all different countries because they know that, we're just, we don't know what we're doing in this country. We don't have a plan. And that's the number one thing. But after that, so obviously the recovery, what we're going to do to turn the economy in this country around. And whenever you think back to the Great Recession of the 30s, Roosevelt, despite a lot of people's, pushing back, decided that the best way to turn the economy around was to get people work, get people good work and keep them working and build things in this country that was needed, that probably people beforehand thought was too expensive or were out of reach. And that's what they did. And that's what turned the country around back then. And Joe knows exactly that, we are way behind in critical infrastructure in this country. We've been calling for a large infrastructure bill for a long time to fix our roads or bridges. I mean, here where I live in Allagash, northern Maine, we don't even have, an interstate system to reach into the county. We've been promised that for 60, 70 years, my entire life. And this is something that is needed. It's something that would actually create work and get people going in this state. I mean, it's just one of the things that we could be doing that Joe's plan very much could take into account. I mean, his whole thing with, Build Back Better is that, we need to build things. We need to set this economy, this country back better than it was before. And it all starts, with his plan of buying American, something that I have been a huge supporter of. I don't understand why we can't get Republicans, including this administration, to support. I mean, we're talking about billions of dollars in taxpayers' money that goes out to buy different products, cars, military equipment. I mean, you name it, technology. And why we don't want to make sure that all of those products are built in the United States is beyond me. And Joe's plan, actually calls that very much into action. His whole plan starts with a Buy American provision, making sure that if the government is going to buy a product, it buys it from somebody that's making it here in the United States. And I just think that is like, finally somebody gets it, that we're going to spend our money on our products, thereby helping our economy. And so I'm very, excited about that. The other thing that I think is, really important about this is there's going to be American workers doing these jobs up and down the country, up and down this state. There's absolutely no reason why we can't invest in the people that, are paying the taxes, making sure that everyday working class people, union workers, get the benefits of this economy. And this is something that we don't have people talking about nearly enough. You know, it's time that everyday working class people had a seat at the table. And you know, Joe Biden's plan, you know, finally does that. And it's something that, you know, I think is going to unleash all the people in this country that have, you know, felt like they've been left behind. No one's cared about them. And getting that opportunity, you know, would be a great thing for everyday people, everyday Americans. And so that's why I'm so excited about this. It's been something that for close to 20 years now, my legislative career, I believe wholeheartedly in. And, you know, we're not getting that at all with the current administration. As Attorney General Frey spoke about, I mean, taking away healthcare at this point is just really mean. It doesn't make any sense at all. There's no plan on that. And then in addition to that, you know, what is giving tax cuts to companies like Amazon and General Dynamics and people like that? What is that doing for everyday Mainers? It's doing nothing. They're keeping that money and not investing. They're not doing what it's supposed to be. It's actually making it harder for everyday working class people because we're picking up those tax cuts. Everyday working class people are actually making up for those tax cuts in today's economy. And that's why, I mean, I just think it's ridiculous that we continue to go down this road. We've seen it. You know, people can talk about making America great again, but we've seen what that means in their eyes. And what it means is it makes America great again for the elitists in this country. And we don't need any more of that. And that's why I'm supporting Joe Biden.
Thanks, Senator Jackson. I just want to thank you for your 20 years of working hard for Maine's families every single day. We all appreciate it here in Maine. You know, we face multiple crises as a nation right now: the global health pandemic, the economic downturn, systemic racism, and a climate crisis. And right now, we have a president who ignores all of these and has no plans. Trump isn't fighting for working families. He's looking out for his rich friends and Wall Street interests. He has no plans to contain COVID, and he's trying to tear down the ACA. We need real leadership. We're seeing what happens now when we don't have leadership, and we need it now more than ever. Joe Biden has plans to address the coronavirus, to build our economy back better, to root out systemic racism, and address the urgent threat of climate change. We can make progress on these issues. We can, we must, we will make progress. But first, you have to vote. The election is already underway. Right now, we have 15 days to do everything in our power to make sure we elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Democrats up and down the ballot. I encourage all of you watching to leave it all on the field and sign up to volunteer with us. I think, you know, right now everyone's asking themselves the questions, have I done enough? And the answer is no, you haven't done enough. None of us have done enough. And right now, what we need to do is get out, knock on doors, visit www.maindems.org/volunteer to find out ways that you can get involved today. And if you haven't already, it's time to make your plan to vote. Mainers have many easy, convenient ways to vote this year. You can cast an absentee ballot from home, vote by absentee ballot early in person at your town office, or go to the polls on November 3rd, Election Day. Visit www.voteinmaine.com to find out everything you need to know about casting your ballot in this election. Make your plan to vote today and stick to it. This ends our discussion today, and I want to once again thank Congresswoman Chellie Pingree, Attorney General Aaron Frey, and Senator Troy Jackson for joining us today. And thank you to everyone for watching at home. Stay safe.